Thank you for joining us this morning for beginner beekeeping Q&A. It's this time of the month where we like to answer questions for all of those newbies out there. Sometimes in the beekeeping world it can get a little bit tiresome with places you go where it seems like it's a problem to ask the beginner questions. But here you can ask any questions you like. We all started off as new beekeepers once. So fire away, put your beginner beekeeping questions in the comments below and we'll answer them as we go. And at the same time we're going to pull apart one of these hives and I'll show you from start to finish, and I'll explain as we go how you do a brood inspection. So if you haven't done it before, it's a good one to tune in on. And if you've got questions, then by all means put them in the comments below and answer them. Also let us know whereabouts in the world you are tuning in from. So here we have our smoker and we'll start by lighting that. Now there's a few tips to this. Having your gloves is a good idea because as things get hot you don't want to burn yourself. As you get more experience you'll learn what gets hot and what doesn't. But basically it's all of this shell around here now. They've got a protective area on here but there isn't a protective area up here. So that's why there's this bit here. Now even that can get hot once the smoker really gets going. So you'll learn to use that with your hive tool and just be opening it like that. Now I'm just going to use some pine needles. We happen to have pine needles from the pine trees just here. But you can use garden mulch like this, or try and find some dry mulch. Anything you've got, leaves. You can even use cardboard if you need to, and away you go. Now the first tip to lighting your smoker is make sure you get the fire really going before you press down on the mulch, because as soon as you pack it too tight it'll stop. So this is a bit overkill. You can light it with just a normal lighter, but that's what we have here. And I'm just going to set fire to it at the bottom. Now before pushing it down, I'm just going to really get it going by puffing it. Notice I haven't pushed down the pine needles yet, and that's really an important step. That's where people usually go wrong. You want to really get it going. You want to build up a bit of coals in there to keep it going, and it's only once it's really going that you can then push it down a bit further. So now I'm going to push it down a bit further, keep puffing it, really get it going before adding some more to it. So here we go. Now I can add some more. I'll use this to push it down so I don't burn myself, and so on. Give your hands a little smoke if you are experimenting with going gloveless. If you're new to beekeeping, wear your gloves. You want a nice gentle start to your beekeeping journey. Okay, here we go. So once you've got a bit in there and it's going really nicely like that, you can then close the lid and you can just go right over the top of the mulch like that. And there you have it. You should get nice, cool puffs of smoke like that. Some people will top it with a bit of actually green grass to even cool the smoke down. You don't want any flames coming out here burning bees. So the idea is you're just putting a few puffs right in the entrance of the hive like that. And then all you need to do is wait a minute or so for the bees just to calm before you start opening the hive. So while we're doing that, think of your questions and put them in the comments below. Beginner beekeeping, no such thing as a silly question. Put it in and we'll get to answering those. Putting your bee suit on is a good idea at this point. This is quite a calm hive, so I'm not too concerned about standing in front while I was, but normally bee suit goes on before you smoke the bees. There we go. Make sure the center zip's done up and the side zips are done up also. And then what you can do, this is the clear view bee suit, which is something that we've invented, and it's really cool because you can actually get a much clearer view than the veil. A little tip here, and we'll put a little Velcro on top. If it's all the way out like that, you'll tend to get more reflections. So if you pull it back closer to your face, you'll get the nice clear view without the reflection. Okay, now next thing we're going to do is undo these wing screws that hold our gabled roof on, and that can come right off like that. So what we're going to do is get right into the bottom box here. Now in the bottom box we've just got conventional wooden wax. In fact, we haven't even got any foundation. The bees from a swarm have drawn all of the frames in here themselves. So we'll be taking a look at them. Now, this is a really good handle to lift from. So beekeepers often ask, where's the handle? There it is. It's a really good one. You take the cover off the back here, and there's another handle on the other side. You can see not a whole lot of honey in these frames yet, so I'm not expecting it to be too heavy, but if it is full of honey, you might need someone to help you lift that top box off. Don't hurt your back. No need to be a hero and do everything yourself. Okay, are there any questions coming in as we do this beginner beekeeping Q&A?
Yeah, Travis would like to know how often you inspect your brood box.
So that is a question, and good idea to ask your local beekeepers to get some local knowledge on what in your area you might need to look out for and do. Here you at least want to get through every brood frame twice a year to have a good inspection for pests and disease, and then on top of that, when you see things like the numbers dropping in your hive, then you should get in there and inspect and see what's going on. Make sure you've got a laying queen, make sure there's no problems. So it's not as hands-on as chickens or something like that where you have to close the gate every day, but there is requirements. You do need to look after your brood nest and look after your bees. Make sure they're happy and healthy. So off comes the top box like that, and what I'm going to do is tip it up on its end like this so I don't squash any of these bees down here. And I'm not putting it on its side because I don't want the nectar to fall out of the flow frames if you put the frames on their side. So there we go. That can just stay there while we go about our brood inspection. Next we're going to clip on our shelf brackets here, which double as a frame rest. So you can back out any of these little screws, get the adjustment right, and the bracket should just sit there like that. The way you put them on is you go over, up, and then swivel into position. So over like that, up, swivel into position. Okay, and I noticed that one was just a little bit wobbly. See that? It's better if it's slightly tighter. So with the assembly tool that comes with our package, you can just give that a little tweak, and that's better. Okay, next you're taking off the excluder. Now the queen excluder is a grid that the queen can't get through, well usually. Occasionally a young queen will sneak her way up through there and get into the honey super, and you have to put her back down, but normally she'll stay down here, and that way she's not laying any eggs in your honey harvesting area. In our case it's the flow frames, the invention my father and I worked a decade on, and now we just had our 8th birthday, so it's been 8 years now out in the wild with over 100,000 amazing beekeepers all around the world. Thank you so much for being a part of that community, and if you've got questions, put them in the comments below.
Yeah, we have a question from Matt. He's based in Perth in Western Australia. He says one of his hives is packed full of bees. What's the likelihood of them swarming at this time of year?
Okay, it's unlikely swarming in the late summer and autumn, but it can happen. And sometimes you just have swarmy genetics. So you could probably, we're still in the summer here, and it depends on how late you get a flow, but you could probably take a split, and that's what I would recommend. If you don't want another hive, then someone else you know surely will. So a nice thing to do is to take a split from your hive. Even if it's just a small one, you're taking a few brood frames out and starting a little colony and looking after that, and that will relieve the congestion and your hive will be less likely to swarm. Got lots of videos on taking splits too if you look on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or the beekeeper.org is a great place if you want an online course that's made to take you from square one all the way through to deep scientific knowledge. Also a great fundraiser. We've planted over 1 million trees so far to create literally billions of blossoms for bees. Okay, here we go. We're going to just make a bit of space. So I'm using the chisel end of the tool here, making a little space, moving the frame sideways. The first one you get out is just a bit more tricky because you've got a lot of bees down in between the frames. So nice idea to get your smoker going again, make sure it's puffing well, which it is, and just blow a little bit of smoke down between those frames there, and that will lessen the bee numbers as you pull that first frame. Because what can happen is you can roll bees between the frames if they're really congested. Notice how a whole lot of bees cleared out then. So smoke's a really useful tool, although it's a bit of an irritant to the bees. It's nicer than squashing a whole lot as you pull the frame up. So the J end goes under like that, and we're just levering up. Notice I did that end, then I did this end. I've got hold of this end with my hand, and I'm just slowly, gently coming up with the first one. That's it. There we have a brood frame, and this is the one, funnily enough, that the comb guide, which is what we put in the top here, wasn't glued in place and it's fallen down. So it's interesting the way the bees have built around that, and they've still built nice and straight on the comb, so not to worry, we can just leave it just like that. But that comb guide is supposed to go at the top and help them start nice and straight on the frame. So I'm looking at this one, and this one we moved back into the centre a few weeks ago, and it's still got a bunch of nectar, and it's also got a bit of young brood in it, and it's got pollen in these sections. So you can see that coloured pollen there down the cells. It's the bee bread, they're fermenting into a good sourdough. And then up here you've got the nectar glistening, which is good to see. It means they're bringing in some nectar. Really nice to see they're going to have enough forage going forward, because it was a bit of a hungry time recently. There wasn't a whole lot in this hive. So I'm just resting on that excluder actually. There we go. I leant it up against the hive just in case the queen happened to be on it and I didn't notice, so she could walk back in. Now the next frame, much easier to get out because we've got space to go sideways, right? There we go. And sideways again and up. Wow, a lot of brood here. So this hive is about to get really busy when you see brood just all the way across the frame like that. So you can see the difference between brood and honey up in the corner here. That's honey. They're just putting their cap on, and the cap's a little bit more translucent in places. And you come to the brood, you can see the difference in opacity there. So worker brood looks like that. Honey looks like that. And then same on the other side. Thousands and thousands of bees. And go through the fluffy bees in
YouTube.
No, anyone can get, or whether they want to do an online. I would recommend just jumping in, getting your gear, getting something near you if there is one, and help teach there, which goes to, so you are registering. Okay, here we go, and flow, and on the comb here, that one looks around in circles or figure of eight or anything. It's just as yet we're still learning a lot, but it is a direction in relation to the sun from what up in the corners, which is good. Any more questions?
What the bees are doing.
and then, so box windows as well. I mean, looking out for the queen, but I should we've got some drone gnome surface, so that's how you can tell your brood. We've got some drone gnome surface, so that's how you can tell your brood. It's the larvae stage. Cocoon phase here, actually a little bit quicker. There. Got enough space just to move them across. Honey, they've actually used a larger cell size because bees, when they want to use it for honey only,
Just asking about winter.
wintering your hive, I'm not an expert in. We don't really